if you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and I would like to remind those in the audience and those watching on television that this is the first reading of any rezoning or special exception request brought before us today. We will first hear a reading of the staff report for the case and ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against the request, and the commissioners will have any needed discussion and then vote and render a recommendation to the City Council. However, it will go back to planning before it goes to the city. That recommendation will then be sent on to the City Council, who will hear the request 2 more times before rendering a final decision. Let me make sure we do have minutes. So we do have minutes that have been brought before us today from the April 19th meeting, and I believe all the commissioners had an opportunity this week to take a look at those minutes. Are there any corrections or additions that need to be made, and if not, we'll just approve as submitted? Mr. Harris? I'm sorry, and May 3rd. Yeah, sorry, my fault. So we have 2 sets of minutes. And if there are no changes that need to be made, then we will just approve as submitted. All right. Pardon? All right, and so that brings us to our new business, which we have 3 cases here today, and I assume, Mr. Harrod, we have everyone in attendance? Okay, thank you. So our first one is REZN-05-17-0899, and this is a request to amend the zoning atlas of the Columbus Consolidated Government. Charles H. Ford Jr. of Columbus, Georgia, has submitted an application for 7634 Old Moon Road, parcels 073-022-007 and 073-022-007A. The current zoning is SFR1, which is Single Family Residential 1, and SFR3, Single Family Residential 3. The proposed zoning is GC, General Commercial, and the property is located in Council District 2, Davis. Mr. Harrod, if you'll please read the staff report.
Thank you, Chairman. The applicant is Charles H. Ford. Owner is Frank D. Foley III. Location is 7634 Old Moon Road. Acreage is 12.05 acres. Current zoning classification is Single Family Residential 1 and Single Family Residential 3. Proposed zoning classification is General Commercial. Current use of the property is vacant. Proposed use of the property is medical office development. General land use is consistent. It is in planning area A. Current land use designation is vacant. Future land use designation is mixed use. It is compatible with existing land uses. There are no environmental impacts. All city services are provided. Traffic impact is that traffic on Moon Road will increase by 2,034 average daily annual trips, and level of service will stay at a level of B. The traffic study that was submitted with the application has a higher traffic count due to the added fast food restaurant. The report also states that a traffic light will be warranted on Moon Road's ingress and egress point. There was no school impact. Buffer requirements are a category C for all properties that are SFR1 and SFR3. It is not a DRI. There were 24 property owners that were notified. We had no calls or emails. A portion of the property is subject to the Veterans Parkway Overlay District and shall be required to follow all requirements as stated in 2.5.20 of the UDO. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Harrod regarding the staff report? All right, well, if the applicant will please come forward, and if you will state your name and address and give us a brief overview. Yes, sir. Right there is fine.
My name is Charles H. Ford, Jr. I'm representing the property owners of this property, which is the Foley family. I live at 1893 Old River Road, Columbus. And this is Pete Hart.
My name is Pete Hart. I work with Jordan Hart Commercial Services. I'm the broker that is helping the Foley family put together this property.
Thank you.
The property has been in the Foley family for quite a few years. They have been approached by one of a number of groups that I'm sure you know is seeking to build a Veterans Administration clinic in Columbus. This is one of probably 5 sites that are being looked at in order to be considered. The VA requires that the property be rezoned before they will consider the applications. We now understand that it will probably be late this year or even January before they make a decision and select a site. And so there's a good deal of negotiations going on back and forth between the actual entity that will buy this property if it's selected and construct the building. So the site plan that we submitted is probably fairly close to the final site plan, but it's not certain that it will be exactly that. For example, the VA does not want a through street on the property because they don't want to have through traffic. It appears they won't take all of the site, that there may be a lot left on the old Moon Road side, but again, that still has not been tied down, so that will be worked out as we go forward.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? Mr. Kinner?
I believe in the traffic warrant study, there was a fast food restaurant shown on the old Moon Road end of it.
That's
Can you
right.
comment on that, please?
Mr. Kennel, that's not in the plans. It was just shown as part of speculation about what might or might be done if the VA left enough property to use for some other purpose. And so, other than just speculating that that might happen, there's no plans for that at all.
Thank you. Mr. Dudley?
What happens if you get the rezoning and then don't get aren't selected by the VA? Then
Well,
the property could be used for any general commercial
That's correct. That's what we think is the best use and what we think is going to be the main uses in that area, considering the fact that all of the land along Veterans in the front is general commercial. Most of the property across Moon Road is general commercial.
And we've had that discussion with Will Johnson, that it was compatible with the surrounding land that is currently GC.
Any other questions from the commissioners for the applicant? All right. Any other discussion? If not, do I hear a motion? Oh, let me ask. I'm sorry. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against this? I see none. Anyone who's speaking in favor? There is none. Thank you for that reminder. Do I hear a motion amongst the commissioners, please? Mr. Etheridge.
In the matter of REZN 05-17-0899, applicant Charles H. Ford Jr. and Frank D. Foley III, I move approval of rezoning 7634 Old Moon Road, 12.05 acres from single-family residential 1 and single-family residential 3 to general commercial. Current use is vacant, and general land use, though, proposed use is medical office development, and the general land use is consistent with the planning area.
And do I have a second? All right. Mr. Davis, all those in favor of this approval, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, 5, 6, 6. And all those against? 6, 2. All right, so that's 6 in favor, 2 opposed. So we will send this on with a recommendation for approval. Thank you for your time.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
can I ask or make a side statement to Kevin, or to request from the city? You know, this is not in question to y'all, Mr. Ford. I'm fine with what we just did. But I am a little challenged by the fact that we've got these sort of projects where people have to get the zoning redone, and then they might or might not get the the project. So if there's some way that, if we have to do a text amendment or something like that to the UDO that would allow that, and again, it goes to some of the constitutionality issues and things like that, but I'm frustrated with, somebody else outside force that might not even select the project is forcing us to make a change. They choose somewhere else, and now this change has been made, and it opens up that property for something we don't know.
Right.
And again, I'm completely happy with GC at that location. This is not a challenge to y'all. I'm just frustrated with the process that's being forced upon us by an outside project. And if there's some legal way for us to update the text that would allow us to do that, just appreciate some feedback from the city.
We can look into it and come up with a response for you.
Thank you very much. And that brings us to our next case, which is REZN-05-17-0905. And this is a request to amend the zoning atlas of the Columbus Consolidated Government. Sylvester Jenkins of Columbus, Georgia, has submitted an application for 1751 and 1815 44th Street. This would be for parcels 035-001-001 and 035-003-001. The current zoning is LMI, which is light manufacturing and industrial, and the proposed zoning is GC, general commercial. The property is located in Council District 8, Garrett. Mr. Harrod, if you will give us our staff report, please.
Thank you. Applicant is Sylvester Jenkins. Owner is Glimpse of Glory Church. Location is 1751, 1815 44th Street. Acreage is 0.56 acres. Current zoning classification is light manufacturing and industrial. Proposed zoning classification is general commercial. Current use of the property is church. Proposed use of the property is church. General land use is consistent. It is in planning area D. Current land use designation is light industrial. Future land use designation is general commercial. It is compatible with existing land uses. There are no environmental impacts. All city services are provided. There are no traffic impact concerns. There are no school concerns. Buffer requirements are category A. 40 property owners were sent notifications. We received no calls or emails. And are there any questions?
Mr. Kenner has a question.
Yes, the proposed zoning is GC. Churches are allowed in RO zoning. Was there some consideration given to RO versus GC?
GC is what was asked for, and GC goes along with the Manchester Road. All the services and all the parcels that are on that block, except for these three, are zoned in GC manner.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioners, regarding the staff report? Mr. Dudley?
Just a comment. I thought that across the street from those parcels was all residential, and that the property does not face onto Manchester Expressway.
It does not.
It faces onto 44th.
You're correct. It does not face onto Manchester, but it is within the block that faces Manchester and 44th. Everything in that block is zoned general commercial and used as general commercial.
Any other?
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Kenner?
Yeah, I know this is the next case, but the next case is an adjoining piece of property that is being proposed to be rezoned SFR 4. So we've got going from light manufacturing to general commercial, and from light manufacturing to residential on abutting properties. So.
If you want to jump to the next case, I'm more than happy to do that and explain that
No,
for
I'm
you.
just saying that
Well, I
from a
think-
overall perspective standpoint this morning in the meeting, we're going one way on one property and another way on the other property.
So, yeah, maybe it would be good.
The house that we are looking at in the next one is currently a residential structure. It is zoned light manufacturing and industrial. They have came back and asked to bring that into compliance. So we have chosen a single-family residential zoning district that will go into.
Okay, well, let me tell you where I'm coming from on this RO. There are residences right across the street, and I think that neighborhood needs as much help as it can get. So if it was an RO designation for the church property, I support the church. If it was an RO designation for the church property, it might just have a little lighter touch on the neighborhood from the standpoint of future land uses along that street if something happened to the church in the future.
That's a
Okay?
good point. Thank
Okay.
you.
I would suggest that you talk with our applicants, because you're asking them to change their application, and so that would be the proper way to do that.
Yeah, and just to get an understanding of where they were
Yes.
coming from. Thank you. So I think that would be appropriate. Any other questions regarding the staff report? All right, well, if the applicant will please come forward, and if you will state your name and address and give us a brief overview, that would be great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sylvester Jenkins, and my address is 8407 Sonoma Point Drive, forgetting where I live at. The address that I'm representing is 1715, the address that you just
Yeah,
stated,
we've got that. Thank you.
44th Street here in Columbus, Georgia.
Thank you. And who else do we have?
Yes, please. My name is Osaromense Ewoma on 62 Julie Court in Forsyth, Georgia, and we're both representing the same address on 1715 44th Street
Thank
here
you.
in Columbus, Georgia.
Thank you. If you will, sir, give us a brief overview. I mean, I know we've heard the staff report. Is there anything else you'd like to add or explain for us?
Just briefly, the property, as you know, that we're speaking of was formerly light manufacturer, Jordan Sausage Factory. We've since gotten that location to convert it.
Yeah, if you'll just get a little
Thank
closer
you.
to the mic, sorry.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And we've since gotten that property to begin a church there. And I'm not used to this, this is my first time, but I just want to share that since being there, we've had several people out of the neighborhood who have come out of prostitution, out of all types of addictions. And if you're familiar with Columbus and that area, you can only imagine the things that have gone on there. Several people there have continued with us. As a matter of testimony, this past Saturday, one of the individuals who was heavily addicted to drugs went out with us as an evangelist with our evangelism team to witness in the neighborhood. There are great things going on there. I'd just like to share that. And we want to be in line with everything that the city says we need to do in order to be in line with what we believe is God's structure for that area.
Thank you. Commissioners, I know we've got some questions. Let's start with Mr. Kenner, because I think that's probably the,
Well, I say, sir, good morning to both of you, and I support the concept of a church there, okay? My question has to do with whether it should be zoned general commercial in case you decided to move the church at some point in the future or something else happened. And then that property would be opened up to a variety of uses which may not support the residential properties immediately across the street. Okay, so the RO designation would still provide for a church, but it would provide downstream if anything happened to your property later on. It would be just a little lighter touch, a better treatment for the neighborhood, the residential neighborhood immediately around the property.
so I think probably the question that you're looking for, or the answer perhaps you're looking for, is why the general commercial request as opposed to the RO request?
When we began to look at the different zonings, we were not familiar with what all needed to be done or which zone we actually needed to be in.
Right.
We asked several questions from down at the
Planning office?
code, city code and planning office, and this, based on the size of the building, the area around this was what we were told would be our best option. So we wanted to be.
Mr. Herrick, can you provide any further comment on this?
That is consistent with the area, general commercial. There isn't a problem with uses between general commercial and residential being butted up against each other. There are a lot of old areas within the city that have that same type of uses. So we looked at it and looked at the rest, everything else. You couldn't go with neighborhood commercial because neighborhood commercial has a 5,000 square foot limit. It's over 5,000 square foot, so we suggested general commercial for them.
I just have a few questions of clarity.
Sure, Mr. Reese?
So, and this is for staff member here. So just to be sure, there are other general commercial areas in close enough proximity that you all were comfortable with giving or allowing them to move forward or approving the general commercial stance, right?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay, and you said to your knowledge, there are no current problems or issues with places where we have general commercial and residential?
There are several places downtown where the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there any connection between the case before us and the case that was brought up that's immediately following this?
Yes.
Yes, they were brought in on the same application, and I broke them up because I thought it would be easier for you guys to handle one general commercial and one that is it is a current single-family residential house, and it will be the parsonage for the church. And so we saw it fit, since it is a single-family residential house, to go back to single-family residential.
But the same applicant made
Yes,
the
yeah.
that's
ultimate
correct.
decision? Okay.
Any other questions, commissioners, for the applicant? Mr. Bollinger?
And this is for the city. I'm assuming if we were to change this from GC to RO, there would be fees involved in that application?
No, you are more than welcome to recommend RO and alter the request as you see fit.
And there would be no penalty to the applicant?
It'll just
no
go forward
delay
as your recommendation for RO.
And be no delay in their application?
No, it'll be forwarded on.
Yeah, they don't have to,
Okay.
they don't have to come
Okay.
back before us. No, sir.
Thank you.
It would go forward with our recommendation as an RO, is how it would.
Are there other ROs in the area, or would this be the first?
There are no other ROs in the area.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Mr. Brannon?
I guess my concern is, though we would be introducing yet another zoning class in that area, and I don't know, Kevin, if you have the ability or to pull up the zoning map in there. You've got GC, the light manufacturing, and neighborhood commercial in there. So then we'd be, and obviously the residential block, but then we'd be dumping in another random zoning in that area. So, I mean, quite honestly, although I don't like the idea of opening it up for GC facing those residences, just from a practical purpose, I'd rather do the GC just to keep it consistent with what's existing there. And then I'm still wish there was something else we could do with the house rather than a random SFR. But I guess that matches what's maybe across the street.
It does, yes.
Well, that one's RMF 2 across the street. Which maybe we, well, I guess what I'm saying though is that you're
I'm
still
sorry, can y'all
introducing
make the
it.
discussion available to everyone?
No, he's asking if we can if we could make the house residential office. Can we put the planning map up on with the, do we have a way to do that?
I don't have the ability to do that. If you make the house residential office, that will be a non-conforming use. It will not be legal because it is a single-family residential structure. And single-family residential structures are not allowed within the RO zoning district.
But if we change it and they don't, it's currently a single-family residence, would continue to be a single-family residence regardless of what they do, as long as they don't change that, they would be grandfathered to a certain degree, right? I mean, we're not going to go in there and kick out the family that's staying there.
As long as it's in use. Once it goes out of use, and it goes out of use for 6 months,
Okay.
it has to fall back to the current zoning
Yeah,
regulations.
sure, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So we're trying to clean it up for them to make sure that it is legal. So if they have to go borrow money on it, they wish to sell it, they
Right.
don't have to worry about going through any problems with rezoning it at that time.
Any other questions or comments, commissioners?
One last question. What was the, well, I better not say last question, but question
Next
for you.
question.
Next question. What was the rationale behind the staff of not recommending an RO initially? What was your drawback from that?
Because that block is general commercial. All of the other uses that are neighborhood commercial were neighborhood commercial and held over from when we changed the zoning in 2005 from C2 to NC. Most of the buildings that are currently there are well over the 5,000 square foot capacity.
So the way that the applications have been presented to us is the best route as far as the opinion of the staff here?
As far as we see.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you. There is no one in the audience, but I'll, for official purposes, called if there's anyone out there that I don't know about that is against or in favor of this, but we don't, like I said, have anyone in the audience. So, any other discussion, commissioners? And if not, do I hear a motion? Mr. Brannon?
Sure, now we're just.
I'm sorry, what? What, you getting ready to do it?
No, go ahead, Teddy.
Oh, you
We're
can
just dealing with-
second it.
We're just dealing with 905, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, in the case of REZN 05170905, applicant Sylvester Jenkins, owner Glimpse of Glory Church, location 1751 and 1815 44th Street. Current zoning classification, LMI, proposed classification, general commercial. Because it is consistent with the general land use and compatible with existing land uses, I move that we approve the general commercial, or recommend the general commercial zone.
All right, and all of those in favor of this recommendation, please raise your right hand. All right, it's unanimous, so this will go forward as an approval recommendation. And you can just stay right there since you're up next for the next one. All right, so that brings us to our next and our final case, which is REZN-05-17-0912. And this is a request to amend the zoning atlas of the Columbus Consolidated Government. Sylvester Jenkins of Columbus, Georgia, has submitted an application for 1819 44th Street. This is parcel number 035-003-002. The current zoning is LMI, Light Manufacturing Industrial, and the proposed zoning is SFR 4, Single Family Residential 4, and the property is located in Council District 8, Garrett. Mr. Harrod, if you will give us our staff report.
Thank you. Applicant Sylvester Jenkins, owner is Glimpse of Glory Church. Location is 1819 44th Street. Acreage is 0.17 acres. Current zoning classification is light manufacturing and industrial. Proposed zoning classification is single-family residential 4. Current use of property is single-family residence. Proposed use of property is single-family residence. General land use is consistent. Planning area D. Current land use designation is light industrial. Future land use designation is GC. It is compatible with existing land uses. There are no environmental impacts. Property has all city services. There will be no traffic impact to speak of. It will generate 12 AAD trips per day. Level of service will stay at A. Their buffer requirements would be a category A for any properties that abut with GC zoning district. There were 40 property owners that were notified. We received no phone calls or emails. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, any questions about the staff report? Mr. Bollinger.
And this may be semantics, but the map that was attached to this one shows most of the area around that to be neighborhood commercial rather than GC. Was the wrong map used, or?
It is, that gets back to what we raised the last time. It is neighborhood commercial because it was C2 whenever we changed the zoning in 2005. C2 was moved over to neighborhood commercial. However, the structures that are there were currently there before that time. Those structures are over 2,000 or 5,000 square feet, so they are legal non-conforming uses.
But I guess my question is, we just looked at the same map twice, and one, they're not consistent, so I didn't know which one is accurate.
Both maps are consistent.
Okay. I don't know what I'm looking at, so. okay.
One may be an existing land use, and one may be the future land use. We send existing, future, and
Okay.
zoning along with each case.
All right.
Any other questions regarding the staff report? All right. Mr. Jenkins, anything else we need to know about what's going on here with this property?
I would simply say that this property is currently being used as a residence, and future vision for this property is a parsonage, same usage.
All right. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Mr. Oh, I saw that finger going. If there are no questions and if there's no discussion, do I hear a motion?
There's a question for Mr. Herrick. I don't have
Yes,
one for the applicant.
sure.
Thank you. Mr. Herrick, just to be absolutely clear on this as well, the applicant consulted the office here, and this was the best recommendation for them moving forward for this property, in your expert opinion?
It was.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
As it relates to the matter REZ 05170912, applicant Sylvester Jenkins, owner Glimpse of Glory Church, location 1819 44th Street, sitting on .17 acres, currently zoned as light manufacturing industrial, and proposed zoning single-family residential 4, consistent with planning area D for the general land usage, compatible with existing land usage, yes it is, and with the recommendation, no fault recommendation of the city, I move that this body approve the residential application as provided.
All right, so we have an approval and a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And it's unanimous, and yes, I did skip asking the audience because there's no one out there. All right, so again, this will go forward with a recommendation for approval. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And that brings us to the end of our cases this morning. I don't see that we have any other business other than a reminder of our next meeting.
We don't. At some point, I will try to get a laptop in here, so when we have a meeting where we maybe only have 1 or 2 cases, we can go over the zoning map, and I can show you guys the ins and outs of it and what you can pull down and what you can't.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, well, our next meeting, just as a reminder, is June 7th, and this adjourns our current meeting. Thank you.